Angels in the Torah, we find angels right at the beginning. Let us make man, and we know that when the Torah was translated,
and Christians have historically tried to use
yes,
that
as God
a
has,
belief in the
exactly,
Trinity.
absolutely. And even though, if you just look at the very next verse, it says that God made in singular fashion.
Sure, and all through it,
Yes,
it makes it very clear the Lord is one.
Yeah, but that is a
would use that analogy too. The Lord is one.
that is an example of, that's the first time we find about angels, that angels, God consults with angels, so to speak, before he creates man. Now, that's the first maybe interaction we find angels. We find other interactions. Abraham, he meets those three men. We find that those are angels later on. They go and they destroy the city of Sodom and Gomorrah. We find Jacob. He struggles with an angel as well. He sends either messengers or angels, depends which commentary you go with. Two opinions in the Talmud, what he sends. We find a lot of stories of angels in the Torah. We also find some crazy stories in the Talmud of, let's say, Moses. So Moses goes to Mount Sinai, right? He goes up to heaven, and he goes up to heaven. He disappears for 40 days. We talked about what happened when he came back down. But what happened when he went back? When he went up? So he goes up, and who's there? The angels see him, and they'll say, "What is this guy doing here?" Right? Ma yilud isha beininu. What is the someone who was born to a woman? What are they doing here? And God tells them, Moses, "Well, grab onto my chair, so to speak, and so they shouldn't kill you." And he grabs into the chair, and they say, "What's he doing here?" So God tells them, "Well, he's here to take the Torah." So you give the Torah. The Torah was written 974 generations before the world's created. You're going to give the Torah to humans? So God tells Moses, okay, go respond to them. Go answer them up. And Moses tells them, okay, well, what does it say in the Torah? It says, honor your parents. You guys have parents? Angels have parents? No, angels don't have parents. So it's for us. He brings a bunch of arguments that the Torah is designed for humans.
Could it be said that God was the parent of the angels? Didn't God create the angels?
God created them. He's not the parent. So this kind of shows that what an angel is a spiritual force. A spiritual force on a spiritual mission.
So an angel is not a being. An angel is.
It's a being, but it's a spiritual being. You can't see an angel. If there's the Talmud says the Talmud.
But doesn't that make them godlike? Because God.
Well, godlike. Okay, I'm fine with godlike because God is also spiritual, but our soul is also spiritual. I mean, but that doesn't. God is the creator. If God's the creator, then everything else is the createe, right? That there's the that brings about everything, which is the creator, and then there's the results. So God created angels, God created spiritual beings, God created humans, and God created physical beings like animals.
I thought angels, though, did not have free will.
They don't.
So then the story of them wanting to question Moses would be operating in contrast with.
No, because that is a reflection of a spiritual attitude. From a totally spiritual perspective, if the Torah is something which is spiritual, and the angels are spiritual, and the Torah is being delivered to something which is not spiritual, like a human, that the spiritual response to that is there's something wrong here.
So was God, if they don't have free will, was God basically pulling the strings of the angels in this story of the Torah, the Talmud that you just are talking about? That what is he doing here? That was God basically pulling their strings, or
pulling the angel strings?
Yeah.
No, it's just it's. I think not having free will doesn't mean that they cannot have reactions. Okay. Free will mean why are humans the only ones that have free will? Because humans. Right. Humans are torn between these two realities, Like we've always talked about humans being half angel and half animal, right? Half soul, half body. On our soul, if you just isolated our soul, we're an angel, right? Once again, there's no form to it, and there's no evil to it. There's no physicality to it. It's just pure intelligence. It's just spiritual goodness, on par. Yes.
It's not just neutral.
No, it's spiritual goodness. But the conflict that we have is because that is wrapped together, that is ensconced in a body that's animalistic and instinctual. That's why we have free will, because we exist in this conflict.
Could it be argued that in some, again, we're getting into the weeds, but I think that's the purpose here to some degree. Could it be argued that animals have, to a certain degree, have free will?
Animals also do not have free will
How do you say that?
because
Who
animals
stops the lion from eating the lamb? The lion obviously decides to eat the lamb, and he's exercising his free will.
When he's full, he don't eat the lamb.
Huh?
When he's full, he don't eat
Yeah,
the
but
lamb.
before he's full, he eats it.
That's what we just said. That's why the animal. The lion
That's not a
does
decision.
have free will.
How do we talk about goodness when we have the Malachim mothers,
What?
the angel of death?
I don't know. I guess, or was it Yiddish? I don't know what you just spoke.
No,
Malachim
Malachim
mothers.
mothers, it's Hebrew.
Yes.
isn't it? Yeah.
Okay.
And that's
So,
the
sorry, I just
Passover,
went to the
you
wrong
know,
draw.
Well, I didn't know the term.
You know, the Yiddish.
So, free will does not mean making decisions. You know, if the animal decides whether or not it wants ice cream or a hot dog, that's not a free will choice. It's a choice. It's not a free will choice.
Why
A
not?
free will choice is where someone has to choose between two opposing realities: the side of the soul, and the side of the body. The struggle that it's uniquely human. We're in. Are we going to favor our soul or favor our body? I've given this example before. I'll say it again. A human is the only being that can choose to go on a hunger strike. Okay, an animal can get sick and lose its appetite, but an animal cannot, on principle alone, decide that I'm refraining from eating, even though I'm hungry. It's not. An animal's incapable of doing that because an animal has an instinct. I'm hungry, like the lion, or like any animal. I'm hungry. I'm going to eat. It cannot say, you know what, I'm hungry and I really, really want to eat, but I'm in prison and I'm a refusnik and I'm not in Sharansky. I'm going to go on a 120-day hunger strike. 120 days. And the only way he survived was because they took these, they opened his throat and they put like pipes down and they shoveled stuff down his throat every 2 days. It's terrible. 120 days. That is a uniquely human capability because you are faced with a real conflict. Your body craves food more than anything else, but your soul or your intelligence or your angel side, right, wants to change something and was willing to overcome that, for a positive end. That an animal can't do that. An angel can't do that either because an angel doesn't have that instinct. Does that mean that an angel cannot have responses? No. A spiritual response is the only response that an angel can have, just like an instinctual response is the only response that an animal can have. Now, the fact that animals have emotions and they love their kids, that's part of the instinct.
How do we attribute all these attributes to angels? How is that done? I mean, is there something.
So these are spiritual entities that God entrusts with spiritual responsibilities. Like we said, in the Torah, we talked about these three angels. Like one of them is there to heal Abraham. One of them is there to tell the good news that Sarah's gonna have a baby. One's there to destroy Sodom. The same guy who's there to destroy Sodom, once he finishes to heal Abraham, he goes to save Lot.
It's the same angel?
I don't remember which one's which. Whatever, three angels, but they're there for three separate missions. An angel is a spiritual force that is tasked with tasks. Huh? Who?
Yeah.
Well, yes,
He
because
washed
in
their
a body.
feet, didn't
They
he?
were in a body.
yes. So, how would they do that? Well, they weren't really bodies, but they appeared to Abraham as bodies.
But what I don't understand is why couldn't they be just three men that were walking through the area?
Yeah, well, they could.
And,
That could have been. We know in reality that they weren't.
why? How do
We know that because we have the sources that tell us that.
Is it Talmudic?
Yeah,
sources?
Talmudic sources, but these are part of the oral Torah.
Okay, but
But
well,
okay, but then we see later on that they go and they destroy Sodom, right? The same people, right?
is that what?
It makes it
okay,
very
maybe I
clear. So you don't
know
even
that.
have to deal with Talmudic sources. The Torah clear. These are not regular people, because first of all, they tell Sarah she's gonna have a baby. So if some dude came to you and said you're gonna have a baby, and you're 90 years old, you probably won't pay much heed to it, would you? And if they go and they turn over an entire city, and they
That's-
miraculously,
I didn't realize that.
right. So this is the same
they-
people.
it were the same.
It's
and
made it clear. It made it clear in the Tanakh. These are they left Abraham and they went straight to Sodom.
I had this idea, maybe when you die, and you say that soul becomes an angel.
Well, that soul has a very similar. Hopefully, will have a very similar composition to an angel. we find a lot, like we find about the seraphim, and they'll find them different angels. I don't know what that means. The Torah doesn't tell us what that means because I guess it's not that relevant for us. But what the Torah does say is that a soul, if you were to isolate it, is very similar in its nature to an angel, right? Because but a soul is different. Because a soul, especially after it inhabited a body, it's a different reality. It's part of a human. Now we do find like Elijah. Elijah transforms into this angel, but he's a special guy, and his soul was unadulterated, and therefore his soul has, some sort of special quality to it that he's able to. We know that this idea of Elijah coming back and telling people, we find in the Talmud of Elijah. By the way, the Talmud we mentioned last week about the ugly eye, according to the Tosafot quotes the source as saying that this individual, this ugly person, is actually Elijah. The angel appearing in the form of an ugly person to teach Rabbi Eliezer a lesson. So that's an idea of a soul transmogrifying into an angel. But what? Thank you. It's a Calvin and Hobbes word.
Leviathan. Yeah. So.
And then there's that other angel, the resurrection.
I'm sorry. Yeah, well, yes. So that's the idea of an angel sometimes taking human form. But we do find in the Talmud that says when someone's walking home from shul on Friday night, he has 3 angels accompanying home. We see in the Shalom Aleichem that song. It's the words are blessed upon you, blessed your Shalom Aleichem, like peace be unto you. These angels of God. I don't see no angels. You see angels? I don't see angels. But we're told in the Talmud that these angels that accompany, we can't see them because they're spiritual. We can't see spiritual things, just like we can't see our soul. So that's the idea at large. But I always, I listened back to a class that I gave 2.5 years ago about angels. And I pointed out something very interesting. So we find that the angels are very antagonistic to humans. Like even Moses. Moses is a pretty remarkable guy. If you met Moses, you say, maybe this is the right guy to have the Torah. Yet they say, who is this guy? And even in we talk about Rosh Hashanah, Ma'eresh Kisistorena, the angels are saying, why are you dealing with humans? And the angels are trying to lobby God to destroy the Jewish people when in the Red Sea. That's been the Red Sea. The angels come to God and say, why are you saving the Jewish people? These are idolaters and these idolaters kill the Jewish people as well. Angels have a hard time understanding humans, despite us being very similar, at least on our soul level, which is kind of remarkable that on one hand, we're kind of similar. We're exceptionally different because we have an instinct. We're half an animal. But the angel looks at us and is like, dude, what's the deal with this bizarre entity? It's like half an angel and half an animal, and what's it doing here? And it's kind of interesting. And I want to point out that, like, okay, why are angels? Why are they so stymied by humans? Because we're different, and they can't wrap their heads around. You know what? On one hand, we have more potential. Like we can become great because we have this free will, because we have this conflict. An angel, they have no urge to do evil or to do anything against their task, whatever their task may be. Their task might be to assist God in the execution of people. Right? Like the Malach HaMavis that you mentioned. That's an angel that we perceive as bad, but it's just fulfilling part of, fulfilling what God wants. And I lost my train of thought. So right, they cannot improve. Right? They can't regress either. We can't regress as well. But it's all based on the fact that they don't understand us. We're foreign to us. We're different. We're strange. So I listened to this class.
They're racist.
That I said in the class that in relationships, sometimes a husband and wife they have arguments and they have disagreements and they have fights or whatnot, God forbid, and it's just based upon a misunderstanding of the nature of a man or a woman. Like they're talking in different wavelengths. Like the angel and the human. They don't really
from Mars, women are from
exactly, and I always said this that I haven't met a single woman that understands or likes to engage in fantasy football. Maybe there is one somewhere on the planet.
I'm sure Aaron Andrews
probably. Oh yeah, well maybe.
just saw her in Chicago.
Like that's something that's beyond the capacity of a woman to understand. Like it doesn't make any sense to her. Like just football in general. Like it's just every Sunday now till February. Forget about it. My husband I'll watch a little football, 11 hours worth, no big deal. And then the man is like, can't wrap your head around why a woman would want flowers. It doesn't make any sense. It's so illogical. It's
flowers. How about diamonds? What do you do with diamonds?
Oh, now wait.
Why do I need diamonds?
It's
Janet and I can attest to that in recent history. So.
Yes.
It's to a man, buying flowers is the most illogical way to. It's so bizarre. You're investing in a plant that will most certainly be dead and thrown out in 4 to 5 days.
Well, that's why I don't buy
Diamonds are forever.
You don't like flowers either?
I'm not a flower person.
Well, that's good.
But it's but
One of us.
But it's the
It's not actually about the flowers.
It's the
No.
principle.
It's you are so important to me that I will throw this away. Like I will take this $50 and throw it away. I will throw this $50 away just to make you smile.
Well, I'll tell you.
Let's just cut out the middleman.
I mean, I don't want
It's
flowers either.
You're not a flower girl.
It's nice when you're dating, but after a while, like
So to me, like it's
yeah,
and I
give me the $50.
I think that we talk about the mitzvah of the red heifer. So like this is beyond capacity of the humans, and that's by design.
Right.
Perhaps like these kind of ideas, like the idea of the angel and the idea of the red heifer, these are things that we could use actually in a practical way in our lives. Angels are very impractical. We can't see them. We learn about them. We don't really understand them. We can't visualize them. But we realize that we can understand that. And that is a very important thing that we could, I think, use in our lives positively.
That's kind of why you brought up the analogy of the woman can't understand a man's affection for football and a man can't understand a woman's affection for flowers.
Yeah.
It's different. We could never understand their perspective from only being spiritual, and they can't understand our perspective.
The angels.
Yes.
Yeah, I just had someone recently told me.
Could it be, if we're trying to get into logical things here, could it be that women buy, I think we can agree, I'm not trying to be chauvinistic here, I'm being complimentary, but can't we agree that women by nature are less, they're wired less, for lack of a better
You say
word.
logically. Okay.
Women but aren't women wired less aggressively than men? Isn't that just a fact of biology?
Hey,
No.
I'm not saying there aren't women that are very violent. I'm not saying that there aren't. I'm just saying, but as in general, aren't they wired different than men?
Yeah, I think that generalities are dangerous, of course. But I think that, let's say you look at, advanced mathematics. From my understanding, there's a significant, like 99% of the class is always men. I was in my son's class this week. They did like a academic fair, and they had the kids all write what they want to be when they grow up. And it was one of the options was an artist, and it was 7 girls and 0 boys there. Maybe girls are a little more creative or artsy, and
we know they're wired differently because they're not required to wear tefillin.
Where it's filling, but even
does that have something to do with wiring, or does that have something to do with just what God
Yeah,
says?
because it says they're naturally in tune. They don't need the antenna. They're already.
It has to do with the men writing the.
Am I right? Can I say that? That's what
Men-
I-
and that's
That men have more commandments under the Torah because it is more difficult for them to connect with God, so they need more tasks, activities, hands-on reminders. But honestly, I think that's all kind of much later explanation to explain why things appear to be unfair.
Well, it's
No.
But that's the argument.
No, but it's in the
a
Torah
very-
as well.
It's a very complimentary argument,
but
yeah.
it's sourced before this was even a political issue.
Yeah.
So yes, you say maybe today it's like but that's 100 years of feminism we're dealing with, right?
Well, because the reason why, and this is not an area where I know enough to speak with any sort of authority, but I've always gotten kind of hinky about that because every time it's been presented, it's been an explanation for that portion of the prayer that says, "Thank God for not making me a woman," and basically people have tried to reword it in other ways, like "Thank God for not making me a slave," "Thank God for not making me a woman," and then when people get upset about it, there's this friendly explanation of, "No, you're actually thanking God for making you a man," and you get all these extra Torah and all these extra mitzvot and commandments, and this and that, and then women say, "Well, hey, we want to wear tefillin, we want to pray at the wall, we want to read the Torah from the Bima. These are wonderful privileges we'd also like to enjoy." And then somebody comes along and says, "Oh no, you don't have to do those things because you have a really special, super secret connection with God that men can't possibly have." So who knows? But
Yeah, but
that's the
I will
big
point
swirl
out
of-
that it's not just revisionist. Like, there's a source from the 18th century from Vilna. They weren't exactly dealing with women, like women's suffrage. That wasn't a big deal then. That talks about this, and so I think we could say that some of it is just objective. Objectively, from the Torah's perspective, women are closer to spirituality. That's just a reality. And maybe that's why the Torah was designed in that way. That gave women some mitzvahs that men don't have, and gave men mitzvahs, some mitzvahs that women don't have, and each one of them is going to contribute to making them as perfect as they possibly could be.
Well, I mean, I've always been curious, because, there's feminists, so-called, that criticize our Torah, but also Jesus only chose women to be only chose men to be his disciples. He could have chose women. He didn't.
Maybe.
Well, I'm just curious because we're talking about
Saying
spirituality.
Muammar Gaddafi only had women as his bodyguards.
I didn't know that.
Virgin women.
Virgin women?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's because he gets closer to the 72 virgins, I guess, that way.
Muammar Gaddafi
I didn't know that, but
only had virgin women as his bodyguards.
What about Vestal virgins in their own?
I'll bet you anything his rationale was, I was kidding, but I'm probably right. As much of a weirdo as he was, he probably got
Why
put him
does
closer to
no
72
one
virgins here on
who's
Earth.
not a weirdo become a dictator? Like, wouldn't that be nice?
I would ask you a question.
The Shah of Iran was a benevolent dictator. He was my favorite dictator.
He was real.
He was a great guy.
Well, he was not my model of human rights, don't get me wrong, but he was a friend of the U.S., and he was a hell of a lot better than what succeeded him. I think we can all agree with that.
On Contadora Island in Panama, when he was in exile.
After the revolution.
Yeah, when he had been ill already. He was this little island the size of.
I remember that interview he gave with Barbara Walters. Yes.
I used to think he would come down to watch his wife play tennis with his Great Danes and the Israeli guards with their Uzis around the place, And then the Mexican, the Panamanian president Trujillo used to fly over and sleep with the wife. His wife, we'd see the plane coming over. Torrijos, not Trujillo. Torrijos.
Janet.
Yeah. And I think it's a midrash, but I just want you to speak to it because parts of it escape me. But it is a conversation with the angels, and I think it's a conversation between God and the angels. And they say, "Put it in the highest of high heavens," and the angels say, "Well, don't put it there because somebody will build a plane to go there." And another angel says, "Well, put it in the deepest of the oceans," and the other angel said, "Don't put it there because somebody will go there."
Put what, the Torah?
I can't remember if it's I think it is the Torah. And finally somebody says, put it in the hearts of men, they'll never leave to look there. Do you know what midrash I'm talking about?
It sounds very similar to Deuteronomy, where Moses tells the people that the Torah is not in the heavens and it's not across the ocean. It's in your heart and your mouth to fulfill it. But there may be some midrash like that says that's the best place to just hide it. Sounds very interesting. Okay, next question, guys.